Hi everyone, and welcome to Studio Jake. I'm your host, Jacob Airy. Be sure to like this video and subscribe on YouTube. Also like my Facebook page, and on both, turn on all notifications. That way you get notified whenever I release a new video. YouTube does this weird thing where they curate your subscription feed so you don't see everything in chronological order like you used to. So ring that little bell, turn on all notifications. That way you hear whenever it happens. Today, I'm going to continue down my comic books for quarantine or lockdown, whatever you're calling it. And I wanted to talk about a group of brothers who live in the sewers, who enjoy pizza and music, and their trainer Splinter loves soap operas, and it is none other than the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You might know them from the trilogy of films from the early 90s. You might know them from the Saturday morning cartoon, maybe several. There's been several Saturday morning cartoons based on them. You might know them from the CGI film. You might know them from the Michael Bay produced films. However you know them, the Ninja Turtles have worked their way into our popular culture, but what few people know is they actually started out as a comic book from Mirage Studios, which, and then later Image Comics, then later Dreamwave Comics, and then now currently their home is at IDW Comics. So sit back, relax, we're going to talk Turtles in a Half Shell, and welcome to Studio Jake. I didn't know that they were comic books, did you? Did you? Well, they are. And I have got a great list of comic books to read while you're on quarantine that has to do with the Ninja Turtles. Um, for a note, several of these should be available in digital formats, including Kindle, or you can download it from Comixology, whatever the case may be. Definitely try to get copies of these comic books. They are fun and exciting and a blast. I'm going to kick off, which most people could probably predict this, but I'm kicking this off with the Batman Ninja Turtles crossover, Volume 1 from James Tinian the Fourth, and it's drawn by Freddie Williams. This is a blast comic book. It is so much fun. They do this thing with dimensions, and this Batman was the Rebirth Batman. So or actually, I take that back. I take it back. I actually think it's the New 52 Batman, and then it's the IDW Turtles with some crossover. I think that is where, but I don't know if the story is canon. I don't think it is, but anyway, the Turtles have this crossover with Batman. It involves a whole plethora of villains, which include the Shredder. They actually did a movie based on this volume, and the movie is spectacular. It's a really good one. Now the movie changed some of the details, but it is a highly impressive comic book series. I highly recommend it. Definitely check it out. The artwork is amazing. Of course, Tinian. I've actually heard it's Tynan. I feel bad because let me know in the comments below. Anyway, I highly recommend this book. Great artwork, great story arc. I don't want to get too much into it because I'll give too much away, but you're going to love it, especially what they do with the Joker. Okay, number 2. This is from the Image Comics days. It's called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Urban Legends Volume 1. Now, I should tell you, a lot of this series goes way different than probably you have seen. It's written by Gary Carlson and drawn by Frank Fosco. And of course, this is Volume 1 I'm talking about. Now, there are stuff that happens a lot that, like I said, are very different than the animated series or even the first run on Mirage from Mirage Studios. But uh, the Ninja Turtles, they battle these cyborgs led by a female ninja named Primiko, and they capture Splinter and Donatello. And so Leo, Raph, and Mikey have to uh, save them and rescue them. And it's definitely was a lost treasure of the Turtles. Of the, what's the word I'm looking for, of the Turtles mythology. Now, it's not canon to any other comic series other than just the Image Comics run. A lot of fans call it Volume 3 because Mirage Studios, they did 2 volumes, and then Image Comics did their own run, and then, of course, later Dreamwave did their own run, and now IDW is doing theirs. Up next we have, now this is a one-shot comic. It's not a what's the word I'm looking for? Um, it's not. It is a graphic novel in the sense that they released it as a hardcover, but it's actually not a full-on comic series. The 25th anniversary has Kevin Eastman, where he highlights some of his old stories, but then he also picks and remasters, retouches a few stories from other generations of the Turtles. So I believe, I think Image Comics is there. I believe Dreamwave. This is before IDW, but I highly recommend it as well. It's just got some really great adventures. It shows the grim and gritty Turtles of the early days, and I think that Kevin Eastman. I always like that they bring back Kevin Eastman with these stories because he was one of the co-creators of the Ninja Turtles, and he does a really good job of editing for the newer stuff and writing for the newer stuff. He just comes right along, New Yorker at heart, and I'm really glad that they did that with these stories as well. Okay, so I definitely want to recommend the Yojimbo Ninja Turtles crossover. It's called Usagi Yojimbo Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Complete Collection by Stan Sakai, um, who wrote and illustrated a lot of these stories. Usagi is in a different dimension where animals, it's got a lot like Zootopia, animals wander, but the world looks a lot like feudal Japan. Usagi is a samurai rabbit he's a Ronin, and basically becomes this vigilante fighting for his shogun, and he has a lot of crossovers with the Ninja Turtles, and they end up becoming friends because Usagi's world is kind of like the world that the Turtles want to live in, and they're ninjas. He's a samurai. um, these um, these stories are a lot of fun. They're really good, and a few of them were inspired during the 2000s Ninja Turtles animated series. They crossed over with Usagi a lot in that show. Um, Usagi is one of my favorite characters to come from Mirage Comics. Of course, he's not owned by Mirage anymore, but still fantastic stuff, really exciting stories. And also, it's always cool to see a samurai wrapped. I mean, let's be real. I mean, it's kind of like seeing Ninja Turtles after all, but I really think these stories are a lot of fun and are really good right along with the classic ones. And speaking of crossovers, we have Batman Ninja Turtles 2. This one involves Bane. It's again written by James Tynion with art from Freddie Williams again. Um, the Nerdists call it Williams storytelling and character work is top notch. Some of the best stuff happening in comics right now. For once, the Nerdist is right. This one includes Casey Jones and Damian Wayne, as well as April O'Neil in the stories. Um, they're having to reunite again, thanks to Donatello. He accidentally, or actually, I think it is on purpose. Donatello goes to Gotham City, but whenever he goes to Gotham, Bane crosses over into the Turtles world. So he using his knowledge of venom, he starts targeting things in the Big Apple. So Donatello has to bring Batman and Robin to New York um, and join with Master Splinter, the Turtles, but they find, uh, but Donatello finds that the other turtles don't like his plan, and so they have to. Um, so Donatello has to work with the Dark Knight and Robin um, by their own, but it's 6 issues. They collected it into a single volume, which is called Batman / the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. Again, it's very exciting, very well drawn. You definitely get the sense that Freddie Williams and James Tynion, whatever it is, they are huge fans of not only Batman, but of the Ninja Turtles as well. All right, so Dreamwave, they collect. It's written by Peter David and drawn um, by an artist. I can't remember his first name, but it's Lasan is his last name. And this is a collection of the Dreamwave comics. This is the first volume of it. It's just called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Volume 1. This is an exciting series. It was very similar to the 2007 animated series, which was more serious. It was darker because, as you know, that Turtles coming in from the 90s film and Saturday morning cartoon relied heavily on humor, and the 2007 Turtles sort of brought them back to being serious. They draw Shredder way more sinisterly. He's got different silver armor. It's a really good um, it's a really good take on the turtles, and I really liked it. It was my favorite run for a long time, and I think that it's got some of the best character designs of the Ninja Turtles. I mean, the way they draw them and how they use their weapons. I love, like I said, I love Shredder, how he is designed with his silver armor. It's just top notch stuff. I'm sad that Dreamwave folded because one of the things I really appreciated about them was their attention to detail. They had really good artists. It's a shame that they didn't last very long, and that they that they couldn't continue because not just Ninja Turtles, but their work on Transformers was amazing. It was truly phenomenal how they worked with the Transformers as well. Just incredible artwork that you would not believe. It's really hard to find Dreamwave comics, but they do have this version of the Ninja Turtles. They do have it available in paperback. Once again, I've got to recommend it. I've got to say it's some of the top-notch artwork from the Turtles that I have seen in a long time. All right, and of course, I got to do Urban Legends Volume 2. We talked about Volume 1 earlier. This is related to the Image Comics by Gary Carlson and Frank Fosco, who did the artwork. The stories continue their with the turtles. They kind of, now I will say that these stories kind of end a little bit on a cliffhanger, although they did resolve it in a volume at some point. In a they did like a little epilogue to show like a where are they now thing in one of their anniversaries. But again, just so you know, this is a very different type of Ninja Turtle that you won't be used to. The storylines are significantly darker, even darker than the ones based on the 2007 series, but they definitely have lot of um, a lot of heart in them. It's very well written. I do think some of the stories are a little crazy, especially in this volume 2, but I do recommend them. They're really good. They're really fantastic. Um, you've got to see it to believe it. It's one of those kinds of things, but I do recommend the Image Comics run. It's, like I said, it's just unusual, but not in a bad way. You'll get a lot of fun out of it. It's something that any um, a Turtle and a Half Shell fan will enjoy. It's got a whole new take on that franchise, and how the characters are, how they're perceived. I really think that it's worth um, taking a deep dive into to take a look at. All right, so this is another Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossovers. It's called The Face of Two Worlds, and it takes place in two different universes. So instead, it takes place in Batman the Animated Series, and then it takes place in the 2015, I think, Ninja Turtles universe. So it was the first cartoon that Nickelodeon had done, because Nickelodeon, they bought all of Mirage Studios, which was the original place of the Ninja Turtles, and so it follows their adventures through that way. I'm not a huge fan of that one. I did watch the first two seasons of it, but it just was a little too kiddish, like the 2000, uh, but not in kind of the endearing way of the early late 80s, early 90s Saturday morning cartoon was. But I do like this story. They do a good job of kind of maturing the turtles, and of course, it's always good to see Batman in his the animated series look from the 90s and the 2000s. Um, it's really cool seeing Batman and Batman work with Tim Drake Robin and Barbara Gordon Batgirl. Um, in this one, they're not in different dimensions. Batman actually follows Joker, Harley Quinn, and a bunch of other escapees from Arkham Asylum to New York. So instead of the Turtles going to Batman's dimension or Bane escaping into theirs, they're one dimension, and Batman works with them to defeat his enemies. And it turns out that you'll get very, as the tagline says, you'll get very shell shocked by this crossover. It's actually better than the ones based on the mainstream comic books, in my opinion. I think it's more well written than both of the other volumes, and I think there's a third one out now, but I would say this crossover is significantly better. All right, and what isn't complete without the movie comic book? So the 2007 film, which was a CGI one, it was a sequel to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the movie, which came out in the early 90s. And so those four films also had comic book spin-offs. And now, I'm not sure if this one has been formatted digitally, but it's collected. It's got a bunch of different writers tied to it, um, and they're all connected into this one volume. It's called TMNT, the Collected Movie Books. It came out in 2007. I really wish they would reprint it, but because of the purchase of Mirage Studios by Nickelodeon, that might be a problem with the rights and whatnot. It's to my understanding, it's no longer in print, um, so it's really hard to find a good copy of this. But they have some on Amazon. Don't get them new because they're way overpriced. But these comics are really good. Something really interesting to add to your collection. Last but definitely not least, you've got to go with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Color Classics from Volume 1. So this is by the original creators, Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman, and they created the Ninja Turtles. What's interesting is they actually misspelled Michelangelo, but this takes them back to the very beginning. Now, originally, the stories were produced in black and white because they didn't have a color printer, and so this one recolors them and brings them back where you can see now these guys are a lot different than the turtles. You definitely know these guys are grim and gritty and they're tough. And instead of wearing color coordinated ninja masks, they all wear the same color. And even Mikey, though he is has a little bit more wit than the others, even Mikey is very tough and brutal in this. It's grim, gritty outlook. It's kind of the darker side of New York City, but it is some of the best turtles, and it's a good way to get to know the Ninja Turtles if you want to know kind of their roots and where they come from. That that was the final one. That was number 10. So that we're out of time today, but thank you so much for tuning in. You can follow me everywhere on social media, on Parler, on Twitter, on Instagram. I'm at Real Jacob Airy. On Facebook, I'm author Jacob Airy. On my blog, I'm the admin. So you can just track me down where I write even more stuff um, from the Ninja Turtles to Batman to Transformers. I write about a ton of pop culture stuff, so definitely check out my blog. Also, pick up a copy of my novel, The Seven Royals, All Good Things. It's available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. If you're on Rakuten, you can add up those points through their Kobo website, and of course, it helps me when you buy it directly from my publisher from BookLocker.com. Thank you so much for listening to me, and as we continue this lockdown, stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, and read some comic books while you are trapped indoors. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.